What's up, everybody? Thanks for joining us on our inaugural Strength and Leadership podcast today. So I've made some modifications and switched over to doing live interviews as opposed to just emailing questions. I wanted to do some upgrading. So I appreciate you joining us. I've got Deivid Quintanilla here with us today. He has the Instagram hashtag or user handle at Diesel Productions. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I didn't have it on my phone at the top, so I was going off memory there. So he's got quite a few followers and is a very, very strong individual. So one of the reasons why I follow him, and he's always got some really great content, and it always seems to be a very, very positive individual. So Deivid, I just kind of want to open the floor to you and just, give us a little bit of background about yourself and how you got started.
All right. So I think like everybody else, everyone started the whole Fitspo bodybuilding type, when they were younger. I used to do bodybuilding when I was maybe my early 20s. That didn't go so well. I love eating just like anybody else does.
Yeah.
So I guess going into dieting into a contest, it was just like, you know what? I did the whole thing. I got it out of me. And my friends at the gym always told me, you're really strong. Like, why don't you just try powerlifting? And I'm like, maybe one day, right? And so finally just last year, a friend of mine just kept, bugging me, like, dude, you should get into powerlifting, and I had no idea how it works, what federation. So I got into looking at it, and USAPL was hosting a rookie meet, maybe like 10 minutes from my house. So I was like, you know what? Why not give it a shot? I signed up and I was like, well, I'm already signed up. I can't go back. So I was really into the whole conjugate system, West Side Barbell, just like probably any newbie, I guess, would say.
Sure.
That they followed the whole system. And I bought the chains and the bands, and I have quite a collection of barbells, just like you do,
Right.
And I started using that, and I pretty much prepped myself the first meet, and I was PRing like daily, weekly, and to a point where I surprised myself that my first meet, I came first place with a total of close to 1,500.
That's
I believe
great.
it was 1432.
Okay.
So it wasn't too bad, but prior to that, I did have a left ACL tear in football and a right MCL tear in soccer when I was younger. So I guess I never had surgery done because I've just heard many stories that's just not the same after that.
So you never got the ACL fixed?
No, never did.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You're a bold individual. Most everybody would say get that fixed.
Definitely. The doctors highly recommend it. And I was like,
Yeah.
you know what? I'm kind of, I guess, afraid going under the knife.
Okay.
So I just rehabbed it myself for 2 years. I did nothing for 2 years, and it showed because I was like 280. So I was like, man. But then after that, I started, I guess, getting into sports again.
Okay.
Friends were like, hey, you know what? Let's go for it. Started off as a jog, and pretty much ended up playing soccer and then basketball and then playing, just different things.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, right now where I stand, I'm surprised for how much I lift as far as deadlifting 600, squatting close to 6, hopefully in a month. Right now I'm in the USPA. My next meet would be the USPA meet, which I just did because I was credited for the meet since the whole pandemic happened.
Right.
Initially, it was supposed to be back in April, but this time I'm working with a USAPL club coach,
Okay.
and he was like, you know what? just go for it. And you never know when the next meet will be, you know?
Yeah. That's amazing. And especially I'm blown away by the torn ACL piece, because that's something that I mean, you probably know. I mean, those are serious. I had a torn MCL in college, and so I know a little bit. But guys that I had played with in college had the torn ACLs, and I mean, they were messed up for a while. I mean, in that rehab, I witnessed the rehab too, and that's no joke. So the fact that you never went under the knife and are performing the way you are, I mean, that's a credit to not only patience but your ability to bounce back. So that's pretty cool. So talk to me then a little bit about, you know, you train, it looks like you train at home a little bit and you train in another gym. Is that correct?
Correct. So initially I was at LA Fitness, just a commercial gym,
Right.
with friends, and just to be active at the, you know, before all this started competitively competing. And I've met Will, which he owns Sandoval Strength Systems here in Katy, and he was the one that held the USAPL meet. And after pretty much the whole meet, I ended up just staying there working out, and it's pretty much, I think, one of the best powerlifting gyms in the Houston area. And there's not many. There's maybe like 4 in the greater Houston area, and it's 40 minutes away from me. But well, now it's 40 minutes away from me, but it's worth the drive.
Okay.
And I pretty much bought I guess, my home gym setup without even thinking this pandemic would have happened, you know? And once it did, I was like, wow, I can't say I'm lucky, because I always kind of, you know, people have a busy schedule.
Yeah.
You could either be home late at night and then you don't want to make the drive to the gym. So why not just train at home? One thing I did have to struggle to buy was the Rogue Kilo plates. That was 6 weeks on, just looking every day. You know, I'm sure you
the struggle to buy equipment has definitely been real, and it's a good time, I guess, if you're in that business. It's a good time for you, but it's just amazing how this has completely liquidated the entire market. I mean, you can't get anything anywhere, and now you're seeing the secondhand stuff on Facebook and Craigslist double and triple and quadruple in price, and people are buying it. It's incredible. But it is like, I'm seeing stuff that's being shipped out 6 weeks from now, 8 weeks from now, 12 weeks from now, you know, and they can't get ahead, because there's no idea of when this is really truly going to end. And it's been interesting, especially some of the people that I follow on, whether it be Instagram or Facebook or whatever, the people who have the home gym. I almost I almost jokingly view it as the people who, you know, stocked up on all the canned goods, who were, you know, saying that the end is near and they're going to be ready for the Armageddon. You know, they've got all the canned goods, and so they're living life like, you know, nothing has changed. Meanwhile, the rest of the population is like banging on the doors saying, please feed us, you know. So I kind of see it that way a little bit. And but it is, you know, I built my gym too, but way before anything like this would have thought. So I mean, you don't realize how nice it is. I mean, I guess I just can't come up with a better word. I mean, it's just such I guess maybe you could call it a blessing too, but it's nice to be able to just wake up and you're a few feet away from being able to do everything you want to do. So, but even like, you know, driving 40 minutes, I mean, that's a hefty commute, you know, if you had to do that on a consistent basis. So, all right. So you got the home gym. So talk to me a little bit about why you ended up starting that.
So I just started to get my home gym, honestly, for the friends. Like, we'd like to, you know, lift. Honestly, at LA Fitness, you can't really chalk up or lift I guess when you deadlift, you can't drop the weight. They kind of
Yeah.
got onto us about that. So I was like, you know what if I just made my garage a place for friends to, you can go all out. No
Yeah.
one's like judging you or anything like that. This is way before we knew that there was like powerlifting gyms around us that
Hmm.
I guess you could say support that. um, but after I bought my rack, I guess it was like a bug that bit me, and I just started buying things left and right, and I just started seeing deals here and there, and I pretty much came across. I mean, I'm sure you've seen the setup. It's the rack. I've actually a couple of reviews you made, and suggestions of equipment that you've posted, and I've read about it. I was like, you know what? Like the lever arms. I bought after I read like how much you can do with the lever arms and how you did the setup with the chains and
Yeah.
everything. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna buy me some lever arms because I mean it can do a lot of things, and it's been working for me in this block.
That's great. I mean, that's the one thing is as soon as I was able to make those lever arms adjustable, it was like an explosion of opportunities. It was like, it's almost like if you had an entire collection of hammer strength machines, the
Mm-hmm.
independent isolateral. I mean, the opportunities that have exploded is just crazy. And so I'm still playing around with more ideas. I'm messing around with this flat bench leg press right now. So, but the the wood attachment that I have is suspect at best. So I ended up having to order the steel attachment. So that's going to be, I think, really advantageous. But as you use the lever arms, you're going to find out like, wow, there's so much more, especially just like your auxiliary stuff. Do your bench press, and then you can go from incline to flat to decline to. There's just, I mean, the possibility is really endless, and it all really started with me trying to figure out a better belt squat. And once I
Mm-hmm.
put the belt squat on the lever arm, I was like, well, why can't I do shoulder press? Why can't I do bench press? Why can't I do leg press? So it was, so that's good that you've been able to get some use out of that. So,
Definitely.
okay. Talk to me about favorite lifts, favorite bars.
All right. So honestly, my favorite lift would have to be currently what's flying is my bench press. Um, I love the bench. Honestly, before I started working with my coach, Omar, um, he was at the meet at that time.
Okay.
And he mentioned, he's like, you know what? I don't know how you bench press because you were doing no leg drive. But he was right. I didn't use my legs when I benched before. So it was just brute force. And
Right.
ever since we fixed that, my bench has been going up. Hopefully in the next month, my final attempt would be looking to get at least a 400-pound bench on
Good for you.
competition. So, but definitely using the Rogue Ohio Power Bar. I used a couple other power bars like the Elite FTS,
Mm,
but there's nothing like the Rogue Ohio Power Bar. Honestly, it's versatile. I can use it for anything. You can use it as a stiff bar. It has quite a bend when you put a lot of load on it, but it's close to competition. To Milico, but I'm not gonna spend. I don't know how
yeah.
much an Milico bar is, but it's pretty
Yeah.
expensive.
They're pricey. They're pricey.
Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, that's something that I like to see, like, especially out of you. I'm not a power lifter, but I like to power lift. And so for myself, it's always I like to watch a lot of other people who are power lifters because there's so much, and I'm sure your coach has talked about like the nuances, the little things, like the leg drive, for example. What have you picked up from your coach that has been like a mind blower? Like you thought to yourself, wow, I never really thought of it that way, or he adjusted your technique to where you saw a rapid increase.
I would have to say my squat. Wait, when he saw me squat, he's like, he came over here and we literally spent about an hour and a half on just technique on all three lifts. He mentioned I didn't brace at all when I squat. I don't know how you mentioned I didn't use my legs when I squatted. I was like, how is that possible? But then when he showed me, I was like, wow, I can feel my legs, and squats have been going up too. I don't really post anything lately, the last month, just to keep it, I guess, the dramatic increase in weights.
Sure.
Except for my deadlift. I'm kind of proud of my deadlift. My biggest issue was my grip. Since my daily work, I'm a diesel mechanic my Monday through Friday. So it's already heavy labor as it is. So let's say if I come, trying to lift 500 plus on the bar, my hands are already like tired from just, working, wrenching all day.
Yeah.
But it's been improving, but overall, the way we worked with a lot was bracing, technique, the way I breathe, pretty much depth was never an issue, but I'm trying to go, ATG, as long as I could. That way I won't ever have a problem to pretty much, get the red lights, which I haven't. I pretty much went 8 for 9 the last meet myself. So I'm looking to go 9 to 9 with, actual senior coach. So I'm looking forward to, next month.
That's great. Okay. So talk to me about like the mental side of this. Have you gotten to the point where it's monotonous, or, what are you doing to kind of keep yourself motivated towards, the next meet?
So I'm sure you heard or seen or read about it. You shouldn't compare your others to elite lifters.
Right.
Honestly, they're right to some point, but I want to get to that point where I want to be that top lifter. Hopefully, you go IPF one day.
Yeah.
But first, baby steps. I see some people around my weight category, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not that far. So if I just keep pushing, day in, day out, eat everything I could, well, the right things, right? Right now, my coach is telling me you need to gain weight. I'm like, I can't gain weight. It's so hot outside. It's like 100 plus,
You can take some of mine. I'd be more than happy to give you a little bit of mine.
So, but as far as mentally, I'm very competitive. I'm not gonna lie. I do not like to lose. I pretty much set myself going for gold, like first place. And as soon as I see, like, let's say my last competition, for example, it's as soon as I see my last name on that, let's say a bench press, I'm like, you know what, I got this. Like usually the last person is the heaviest to lift. And as it keeps going through the meet, I'm like, I got this in the back. I just get excited, But also there's kind of, like you say, a dark side to get that fight or flight out. Let's say when you're going for heavy weight, it could be, it's something I've worked on for a very long time that I can, I guess, use at will. But I only try to use it when needed. Like, I don't like using it because it's kind of, I can't get out of that funk.
Yeah.
But other than that, I have a very competitive mentality to pretty much get there one day. This past Saturday, I was at the gym at Sandoval Strength Systems, and believe it or not, there was 4 elite lifters there. I'm sure you see Russell, right?
Yeah.
Russell Orhe. They were Just Efficient was there. Honestly, it kind of looked like Sheffield 2020. It was about to happen. There was 5 elite lifters in there, and man, they were just, the energy they give off.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I'm like, man, like I want to be that person, that can inspire others. Be like, hey, you know what? This is where he started. I'm not young like those guys anymore, but I know I can get there. I can see myself probably another year, and I can see myself, up in the ranks.
Yeah. I like that you mentioned the dark side, because that's when I lift, and we'll talk about this too, because I'm curious to know. But one thing that I do, and everybody's different when they train. A lot of people will listen to music, and I did that for a long time, but I don't listen to music anymore. And I made a post about that once, and people were kind of like, well, how do you get motivated? What keeps you going? And I've been, for the last, it's got to be 3 years now. I listen to speeches. I listen to prominent people who have, you know, said whether they're motivational or inspirational or determinational, whatever the case may be. I've, it's, it was an eye-opening thing for me, because not only I was training my body physically, but I was training my mind mentally at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And for whatever reason, I was able to, almost in a way, to separate the mental from the physical. Like, it's hard to explain, but it's almost as if you were like floating mentally. You didn't think about like, well, I got to get jacked up for this next lift. You just went and did it. Like, I would just go and, so I never got too high and I never got too low. And so I was always kind of very, even keeled. And, but the reason I bring that up is because I listen to a lot of Jordan Peterson. I've been reading his book lately. I don't know if you're familiar with him or not. But he talks about, he's a psychologist, and he talks about the dark side, or the monster in most people. And he said, in order to be, a good person, more or less, you have to be able to have, you have to be able to be a monster, but be able to restrain it, and, not let it out, essentially, or let it out when it needs to be let out. And so I that made me think of that when you mentioned that. And that seems to be the release for a lot of people, is they let that monster out on the weight when the time, it shows you kind of where, you have the capability to be very, very angry, or, you have the capability of doing some, we as humans, we do disturbing things to each other. I mean, just look at the history of human beings in general. But so it kind of made an impact on me in thinking about that. So that was just an interesting point. So, within that, so I'll ask you now to follow up with that. What are you listening to?
So far, it's a variety of different types of music. I used to train, like, let's say, to get that monster out. I would listen to, let's say, Hatebreed, or, heavy metal.
Yeah.
But I've learned to pretty much take it out when needed. So I can listen to, let's say, anything as far as classical music, anything to Hannah Montana, or, just
I have heard in your stories, I have heard some quite the variety, I guess we'll say. And it always, that's one of the reasons I always like listening. I like to watch your stories, because there's a lot of entertainment value behind there. And so it always gives me a good chuckle. Whether it's, I've heard some country music to, I think there was some Spanish rap, I think, one day, and so just a lot of variety. And so it was always kind of entertaining to see what you had on deck to listen to. So then what's your go-to, right? So you got to get the monster out. What's your go-to?
My go-to song would, it's not rock. I wouldn't know what kind of genre it would be, but it has to do. I'm not sure if you've ever watched anime, maybe, or came across it. Dragon Ball Z in particular.
I'm familiar with it. Yeah.
Okay. So there's this certain moment in this anime that has like a cue, and it's like I wouldn't say a song. It's maybe like a I don't know what you call it, but I guess I wouldn't say lullaby, but it's just like a minute, and I just only need really like 5 seconds to lift. The lift. That kind of just puts me in meditation too, but also gets me hyped, but doesn't get me too angry, but I'm just ready for it.
Right.
And it just reminds me a lot of things, I guess, mentally what I've gone through, and it never fails. Every time I hear like those, that song within a minute, it's just it puts me in that vibe.
Mm-hmm.
And it's gone through every time, every lift. I can remember it. There was a point in time where I had to stop playing it, or even kind of just cut it off on Instagram or my lifts, because I'm like, people are like telling me, really, like, you don't have any other song, or just don't play nothing. I was like, you don't, they don't understand.
Sure. Right.
But at this point, if it was to say, that would be my go-to song. But as far as to say a working set, like a heavy working set, I would definitely have to go with like heavy metal.
Yeah.
Korn would be my all-time favorites. And Falling Away From Me. I don't know if you're familiar with that song.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah, that was a big one.
So that would be my go-to song. Other than that, other music that people are like, "What are you listening to?"
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, that's why I'd rather not say.
Yeah. Well, that brings up a really good point. Is that we all have a different trigger. We all have a different trigger, and everything sets us up for our own success mentally in so many different ways, and so, like you had mentioned, the things that you've gone through in your own life, somehow that connects with you, and that might be the only way for you, as what Jordan Peterson talks about. Again, I'm bringing him up only because I've been diving into his book and listening to him a lot lately, but it makes a lot of sense. It's the only way for you to bring the monster out, to slay your own dragons. Right. And so there's, for other people, that it could be a Hannah Montana song,
Yeah.
And so, we just don't know. And that's the thing. There's a lot of assumptions of, a set way to do things, and there isn't. The only thing that really matters is, can you move the weight? Can you lift it from point A to point B, and have success with it? So, so I kind of want to transition into some of the leadership stuff, and I've really enjoyed talking about the strength side of it. But so let's talk a little bit about, just your passion in general. You mentioned you're a diesel mechanic. So is there anything else outside of that, or is that something that you've always enjoyed doing? What took you into that? Do you have anything outside of that that you get really passionate about?
Yeah, honestly, let's say my passion is being a mechanic in general. Knowing the fact that you're kind of a doctor in a way, but the
Right.
patient doesn't talk to you.
Right.
The truck or car, whatever it may be, doesn't talk. So, but I always loved. I was always a hands-on type of guy. That would be one of my things. I love building cars or trucks or engines or whatever it may be. I love teaching, especially like the younger guys that,
Right.
Like, oh, I want to do this, but I don't know how to get started. Every time I hear that, I remember, myself, that no one guided me going into something, that I love what I do. It's not even a job for me because I love it so much.
Right.
So I kind of just like pretty much help them go through that path, and they're pretty good now. They're set. I guess I wouldn't say depending on them, set for life. But
Yeah.
It's something I love doing. Is on people that don't really know, is building pretty much, either if it's a race car, if it's a mud bogger, that's like taking off road, or a rock crawler. I don't really post too much of that, just because, hey, no one really, I don't know if they're interested or not, but when they do see something, let's say a story, they're like, oh, you do that? I was like, yeah, I do that.
That was one thing. That was one thing that I saw too. And so I'm in Northeast Ohio, and I grew up in a pretty rural town, I guess you could say. And that was something that I had some friends too. They had all the souped up trucks, and they were all jacked up. And that was something that they all used to do. I mean, I did that in college. I had this beat up Dodge pickup truck, and we went tore through a cornfield just for the sake of doing it, And so,
Yeah.
so I could totally relate to that. And so that was one thing that I saw. I was like, oh wow, that's got to be a lot of fun, and doing it with other people, I'm sure made it more entertaining.
So, definitely.
So you've got a lot of, I guess, spread out interests, and so talk to me then about, do you have any kind of like personal vision, personal mission statement, you hear the, what's your why? Do you have a why behind, why do you get up and work a blue collar job and then come home? Cause you lift in the afternoon, right? Afternoon, evening.
Correct.
Right. So, how are you getting through the workday and then coming home and saying, okay, now I'm going to bust my ass in the weight room and get stronger, So what's your mindset, or what's your why behind getting all of that done?
So honestly, on that note, I kind of have to mentally prepare myself as soon as I'm done working out the day before, because I already know what's ahead of me on my schedule for the next morning at work. And knowing the fact, the way my coach set up my block, he's aware of this. So most of my heavy lifts would be, let's say, the first thing of the week. But other than that, the reason why I do it or how I do it, I still don't know, because I'm constantly lifting heavy things at work. I come home and, I try not to take a nap, because once I do, that's it. Like, I try to get in the gym and I'm like, I'm just dragging my feet, I'm like, I have to do this, I have to do this. But once I get in that zone, it's nothing. It's just, I'm surprised myself when I lift a couple, these weights. I'm like, how? To me, it's light, but to friends, you're like, dude, that's a lot of weight. I'm like, not. I don't see it that way,
Mm-hmm.
But I love doing it so much. I think just challenging myself. Actually, when I walk in through these doors, I'm looking for failure. Like, I need to learn on these lifts. Yeah, this is the only thing that's going to teach me to progress, get better, or pretty much fine tune what I'm doing wrong, so I can get better, the next day, or even at that moment. There's times where I've pretty much lifted the same weight 3 times, 3 different ways, just to see which way is better.
Mm-hmm.
I guess you could say, to overall why I do it is just because I really love doing it. There's no other way. There's not a day I can't go lifting and I dislike it when it's my off day. For example, today's my off day, and I'm just like right now in my garage. I'm like, I want to throw something down. I can't deadlift. I can't bench. I can't squat. I have to wait till tomorrow.
Yeah.
And it really eats me inside, because it's something I love doing. But hopefully, also on the side note of that, I do always wanted to open a powerlifting gym for myself. I was actually going to open one up this coming up December 2020, but after everything happened, the whole thing going on, it didn't go that way. Maybe it just wasn't time for it. I did have a lot of equipment stored, but with, let's say, work slowing down and all these other things happening, I had to sell little by little, and I wasn't like gouging prices, for people to, like, I guess, make money off of. I was trying to help people.
Right.
I made it, like an offer up, or in marketplace. I'm like, hey, you know what? If y'all need something, like, just let me know. So I love helping people out, like, even if it's something small.
That's pretty interesting, and that 2020, this whole year has seemed to be something out of the twilight zone. I mean, it's completely surreal, and I mean, geez, we're only halfway through it, so Lord only knows what's in store the second half. But it's interesting that you mentioned about opening up a gym, and your thoughts about maybe it's not the right time. Do you believe that things happen for a reason? Is there any faith or religion behind, how you think about the way things happen in the way in which they do?
Yeah, I definitely believe things happen for a reason. You've never known. I've thought a point where, well, let's say this didn't happen and I opened it, and let's say I wasn't ready to manage a gym, and what if I've gone, bankrupt
Right.
or something, I did have friends that knew how to run one, and the whole, I guess, managing a gym itself. But I wasn't confident enough in myself to take care of it because, obviously it's mine, I don't have to bug anybody else. Hey, how do you do this? How do you do that? But I do believe that things happen for a reason. And like I said, maybe it just wasn't my time. And hopefully looking for 2021 that, I'll be opening soon, which I'm really crossing my fingers for.
Good for you. Do you have a name yet?
I do not. I do not. I'm still working on that.
Okay. So that's definitely interesting to hear, especially given, sounds like you got a very open mindset about how everything is supposed to run. And the one thing that I've really picked up from just our talk here is your patience. You mentioned that you love to help people, you love to teach people, and just the ability to wait when things are not ready. That's something that a lot of people might struggle with. So can you elaborate a little bit on, or give me a little bit of advice that you might give to somebody who struggles with patience and wants to rush through things and push the envelope maybe when they're not ready?
Yeah, most of the time, let's say if it's, for example, you're trying to learn something new. I want to say at this day of age, everybody wants things fast.
Yes.
So there's no one has patience. Everybody wants like this. So every time I meet someone, like, let's say younger than me, like, oh well, let's say weight example, right? I want to get a 350-pound bench. I'm like, okay, great, but it took me 2 years, to get to that point. It's like, and then they start, let's say, shortcutting, for example, the steroids.
Right.
Like, oh yeah, well, this guy told me I can do it if I take. I'm like, look, I don't know nothing about that, but I can tell you how to progress and get there, and I can help you through it. And I literally give them, like, I guess you could say, free program on how to get there, but they don't really take it. They're like, no, you know what, I'm like, but I'm very patient with people, and I tell them how I've gone through a couple of things. For example, on a different note, let's say I was in school, trying to get my diesel certifications, and I worked at 4 a.m. I got off at 1. I went to school at 2 p.m. Got off at 9. So that was like that for a whole year. I pretty much told them it was, and I would never live it again. But I do tell people, I'm like, look, if it's something you really want, you pretty much have to be patient. If you rush things, you could either not go the way you want it to go, or you can get hurt in any aspect. So usually they don't seem to understand. I just don't know what it is. They can't get it through their heads. But I try to tell them how it is, and hopefully they take my suggestions or any advice, and they can run with it. And maybe hopefully teach the next person they meet. They're like, well, hey, you know what, this is how I've gone through it. And pretty much like a domino effect. Hopefully teaching somebody something else.
Right. So 4 a.m. to 9 p.m. All right. So what was, and I always find it interesting because there are things that I've done too that I would say I would never do that again. But in reflection, there's usually one really important piece that you've taken with you that had you not gone through it, you would have never learned it. So what was the one big takeaway from that year where you were really on a true grind?
I would have to say grind for a better future. Knowing myself that if I didn't go through that, I would probably be at the bottom of my life, I guess you could say.
Okay.
Um, it was tough, but I had to get it done. Honestly, doing it so much, let's say maybe it wasn't gonna like the third month I couldn't get used to it to maybe half the year. It became like second nature, like kind of like a robot.
Right.
I had to wake up 3 a.m., go to work at 4, do what I had to, then I'm on. I really had to, like, I guess, clean up in a way, get ready, and then go to school, and then try to stay awake for 6, 7 hours,
Yeah.
and do the same thing, but only at night.
Yeah.
But I met so many different people there, a lot younger than me, and I was like, look, man, like, finish it. You know what I'm saying? Right now, this is what I'm going through. I don't want y'all to go through something like this because it's not pleasant. It's very difficult, and you have a lot of time in your hands. So pretty much, get it done. Because if you don't, I have a couple of friends that graduated, but they're still, I guess, not working. I don't see how that happens, right?
Right.
But it was hard, but hey, you live and learn, right?
Yeah, you do. And wow, I'm not surprised that you were able to do it. I mean, it just, from what it sounds like, your work ethic is extraordinarily high. And once you put your mind to something, and that's a big separating factor too. For some people, it's they haven't figured out how to tap into that mental energy. But I think the fact that you're a patient person, you seem to be able to see the end result, and you can kind of backtrack on how you got to get there instead of looking at the moment, because for a lot of people the moment sucks. The moment really sucks, and for a lot of people the short-term suffering is a lot harder than bearing it and knowing that at the end it's going to be worth it. So that's, I applaud you for that. It's really interesting. And this is one of the reasons I like doing these, because you find out so much more about people and, their own background and their own stories and the motivating factors behind them. And so, it's always neat to see. And the fact that, we've got the technology that we have to do this. I mean, for crying out loud, you're in Texas and I'm in Ohio. So, talk to me a little bit about, do you have an example of when you had some type of a failure and maybe it was a big one and you thought like, shit, like, how am I gonna get out of this? Or maybe it was something that you really thought you had a chance of getting, whether it was a job or a promotion or something in the weight room. Can you provide me with something that really made you reflect and you had to sit back and say, okay, I've got to fix this and here's how I'm going to do it?
Yeah, definitely. I actually, let's say at work, an overhaul in a diesel engine takes about total 26 hours. Me rushing one night on repairing, let's say, a job on a truck, I knew the fact if I was to rush a certain job, I would mess up. But knowing the fact that you're tired, you're done with the day, you just want to go home, I ended up taking that route. So the next day, let's say, it didn't go well working. Like the engine just blew up. Let's just put it like that.
Okay.
And I had to pretty much rebuild that thing, probably record time for me, alone within maybe 21 hours. That was probably, I can say, the hardest thing I've ever done. Um, that's kind of the part where it says, be patient. My
Yeah.
patience was nowhere around that time. But at the same time, that mentality, I guess you could say, that's helped me, let's say at the gym or lifting weights. I was like, okay, you know what? This is the game plan. I need to finish a certain time and, get it going. Like for those 2 days at work straight, finishing everything I had to do. People offered help. I was like, you know what? No, because this is my responsibility.
Yeah.
But it was challenging. But hey, I mean, like I said, mentally prepare yourself for, let's say, anything. It comes a long way,
Wow, that's wild. That blowing up an engine. Yeah, that I
Yeah.
don't have any experience with that, but I can relate to that. So, but again, that goes back to patience, and that's the big theme I'm picking up from this, and I really like that. I mean, because that applies to so much of not only what you're doing with your own training, but how you're approaching just life in general, and how you're trying to help the people who are, getting into, whether it's training with you or at work with you, and that underlying theme of patience is such a strong point. So is there anything you have, any favorite quotes that that is like a reliance for you?
I do, but it's very long. Do you listen to a couple of Dave Tate's podcasts?
I have not. No, I know of them though, but I haven't listened to them.
Okay, I'll have to send you the link.
Okay.
Pretty much, it's I wouldn't say it's a quote, more like a statement. It's very long, but it's a certain reason of going into the void of just pretty much going into nothing. But like how kind of like you said it, like you projected your body out,
Right.
spiritually, but your body's still here.
Right.
That's kind of what helped me in a lot of different ways. Whether it is, let's say, lifting at work or just getting something, even if it's changing the toilet. Hey, that's pretty hard,
Yeah.
If you're not a plumber, you're like, all right, I gotta figure this out.
Yeah.
And then, but yeah, I'll have you send you. It's a very long quote. I've always tried to remember it because I mean, there's always, like, I guess you could say, another one's like, pain is weakness deep in the body. That's, everyone knows that.
Yeah.
I really love it, which is because it's true. Once that's gone, you're only getting stronger. Day in, day out.
Yeah, that's true. It is. It's very true. Okay, you got a book you'd recommend? Any type of publication, something that maybe you have read or are reading, or
Currently not reading anything right now, but I do. I listen to a lot of audio. I listen to a lot of Zig Ziglar a lot.
Yes, big fan of Zig Ziglar.
Love it. Or Eric Thomas.
Yes,
my other guy.
Okay, so how about a podcast then? If there's no books, you got a podcast or a speaker that you would recommend?
You know what? I listened to a new one this morning, but I've always go to Eric Thomas. He always hypes me up. It's like he's speaking to me, and I can feel that. I can relate to what he talks about.
Right.
And it's just it's incredible because I don't know, man, but he knows, he's gone through some things that I can say, hey, I've gone through that, or he's even these audio podcasts help me out on a couple of things, which is either thinking differently or seeing a different aspect of what could be or what can be or what can you do, one of the things they mentioned is, you have your hands. It can do anything you want if you put your mind to it.
Right.
You know, and some people don't take advantage of that. I've seen, a couple of people just like, oh, well, I don't want to do that. Or not being lazy in particular, but they just don't have that drive.
Right.
And if you listen to motivational speakers or, like I said, different quotes and stuff like that, a lot of people can relate to that and be like, you know what? That was me at one point. It could be the smallest thing, but it was probably the hardest. Like for example, I had this one time, my kitchen sink backed up. I'm like, man, how am I going to do this? Like, I don't know how to work this, but I learned to never fail. I read, I guess you could say, blueprints of how it runs.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, and I got it working, and it feels good once because you did it yourself.
Yeah. That's cool. I like that. I listen to a lot of Eric Thomas too, and I think one of the greatest accomplishments, I think, aside from the fact that he has a PhD, I mean, he is Dr. Thomas now, was the 4 years to get a 12-year degree. That's the one thing I hear him talk a lot about, and that really speaks to the patience factor and determination and not giving up. So no matter what it is in life, it's that that is an example of there should be no excuses. And that's, for me, it's always been a big piece of my own, whether it's in training or what I'm doing for my own website, is understanding that you got to play the long ball and you got to play the long game, and short term things may not work out the way you want, or you may not get as much traction. And I mean, I remember when I first started this out, I didn't know where I wanted it to go. And even to this day, it's continually evolving. I would have never thought I would have been doing something like this, because I don't feel that I'm very good in front of a camera to begin with. So it's just something that you start to find out. You find out kind of where your direction starts to go once you have a vision and can kind of navigate it, I guess. The direction determines destination. I've heard that a lot. So, so to kind of close up here, I got one more question to ask you. So you've got advice, somebody comes to you for advice, whether it be training, whether it be life, or maybe a combination of both. What would be, the best piece of advice, or to anybody who's listening, probably the dozens of listeners right now, what would be, the one thing that you could give, in terms of advice to somebody who would be listening?
I always saw it as to say, plan out your future, because that pretty much will determine what you do today and the day after that and the day after that. Because once you know what you're set on, you pretty much have a path on pretty much what you need to do, and it'll never fail. If you want it that bad, whatever it may be, you'll get it done.
I love that. That's awesome. Okay. I got two more things for you. Okay. So I'm going to go rapid fire. This is something I think I'm going to end with all of my podcasts. So first word that comes to mind. So my little motto is all about strength and leadership. So the first word that comes to mind when you think of strength, what's the first word that comes to mind?
Power.
Okay. First word to come to mind with leadership.
Leadership. There's so many things when it comes to leadership. I just had it just blanked out. But leadership. Oh man, there's so many things. Next question.
Well, I think for you, I mean, it's pretty clear. And that's a tough one, because like you said, leadership is, there's so many different things. And so what I see from you in terms of leadership is not only patience, but I see somebody who is a very willing teacher. That's what I see from from you, especially from our conversation. And I would have never known that about you had we not had this opportunity. So I want to thank you for that, because I've learned something today. So I think that's something that, you don't have to be the head of a company to be a leader. You don't have to be at the top rung. There are many, many people who are leaders in different ways, and that's pretty evident that you're doing that. So for that, I want to say thank you, and I appreciate the time that you spent with me today. So it looks like we went about an hour, which is probably pretty good. So, I enjoyed the time. Thank you very much. And, hopefully you'll have a lot of success here. I'll be continuing on to cheer you on here as you prep for your training, and I'll make sure to have everybody that I can connect with to throw you that same support, man. And you always, you ever need anything, you always come back to me, and maybe we can
appreciate it.
Maybe we can get back together here once you get through your next meet. We can talk through some of those PRs that you're going to be posting up.
Oh, definitely. I'm excited.
Awesome.
There's a couple things I haven't recorded that has happened already.
That's good. That's good. That's very good. Yes. Well, that's well, you can consider this the prelude then, I guess. So
definitely.
Awesome, David. I appreciate the time, man. Thank you very much. You have
Thanks for having me on.
Have yourself a good evening, man. Okay.
I much appreciate. Have a good night.
All right, buddy. You too.
All right. Thanks.